What value do you believe that you bring to your organization today? No matter what role you're in. You could be the personnel secretary like I was, and you can think, how am I adding value to this company? And then take joy and pleasure from what you do. You can get one person to appreciate and see your value by doing what needs to be done, by identifying things that they're not thinking about. They always think about threats and opportunities. What's happening? How can I help you, Chris? I heard yesterday about this. I'm going to tell Chris about that because he needs to understand that in his organization. Build it one person at a time. Maybe there's 12 people at a table and you only have 3 people who are your champion, but next year you'll have 4 or 5. Just keep doing what you're doing and believe what you're doing is making a difference. Lastly, if your organization truly does not align with your values, then you need to find another place to work. If you're working in an organization that aligns with your values, you will be able to influence that company and drive success with a smile on your face. It just might take you a little bit of time.
Hi everyone, welcome back to the HR Leaders Podcast. On today's episode, I'm joined by Kathy Cullen-Cote, who's a Chief People Officer at Teradata. During the episode, Kathy shares how organizations can change their culture to attract and hire diverse talent, how to promote holistic well-being, how Teradata is using people analytics to drive business outcomes, and she also says how to move to a skills-based development approach. As always, before we jump into the podcast, make sure you hit the subscribe button, turn on the notification bell, and follow on your favorite podcast platform. With that being said, let's jump in. Kathy, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm great, Chris. Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Nice.
I'm great. How are you?
I'm all right. I'm good. It feels like the year is just flying by.
I cannot believe it's March already.
I know. Yeah, I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, to be honest. I think I've been working so hard, that's why it's also flown by. Do you get that feeling?
Yeah, also I think as we get older, you might make fun of my parents when they said it. Now it's me saying, oh my gosh, I can't believe it's Q1 already. Yeah.
Before we jump in, tell everyone a little bit more about you personally and your journey to where we are now.
I am the head of HR for Teradata. And my journey has been a long one. I've been working in human resources since 1985. And I started as it was called then personnel. So personnel secretary.
Back then.
Remember?
Yeah, remember those days. Yeah.
And from there, I just worked my way into different organizations within human resources. So the first one was benefits, and then into a generalist, and then into like setting up a shared service center inside the human resource function. And then it just somebody liked me and kept giving me opportunities to learn and grow. And I was very lucky.
Amazing. So it sounds like you've touched all the core areas and functions underneath the umbrella.
It's probably annoying for my team because I feel like I know everything that they're doing. I owned recruiting. I've owned it. I've owned every function at some point. So I have all these outdated opinions and think I'm right. So probably very frustrating.
It's even worse. Yeah, you're thinking, well, I know it. I've lived and breathed it. You can't tell me. But they're like, listen, you knew it a long time ago.
1990,
It's come a long way. You've got this thing called technology now. that helps us out. Tell everyone a little bit more about the business, people that may not be aware of the company.
Yeah, so Teradata is a technology company, and we are data warehousing is what we really started in, and we're so well known in that area. All the banks that you know and healthcare, they utilize and save the data on our technology because they can trust it. And now we're breaking into AI and really offering solutions around trusted AI in their data. And it's a great company. It's 7,000 people that are working really hard and have such a sense of pride. Like during COVID, I'll tell you this. So during COVID, when you would see the graphs that were showing that the health agencies were utilizing, that was our technology behind it. So there's a great sense of pride from our employees that what we offer can save lives.
Wow, that's so interesting. So it's one of those organizations where people probably interact with the technology, see the technology, but just don't know the brand of that.
100%. Yes. Yeah. They don't know the brand because we're behind the scenes.
How do you contend with that as a HR leader of a team and from an employee brand perspective?
I think that we share with them exactly some of our customer stories, some of the stories that they can relate to, so that they would get on an elevator and they want to tell their friends or they're at a cocktail party, and what their company does and how you've interacted with them.
Mm-hmm.
They
Yeah.
can share a couple of stories and anecdotes, and then it resonates. And then once you're in here, you know because you're working on it.
Yeah. It must be a fascinating time then for you, because obviously there's so much attention on AI and the security and compliance, and so I'm sure all of your customers are running to you right now with questions of
Everybody, every function in every company is thinking about AI. And I know you've talked about this with other
yeah.
um, participants in your podcast, but everyone needs to plan for it. Everyone needs to start it now.
Mm-hmm.
And being the company that you can actually trust makes it us really a good solution for everybody
Yeah.
because you can trust us with your data, which is, like you just said, security issues. They're frightening. And we are well known for being trusted. That's one thing, no matter what dinner party I go to and I say Teradata, and they're like, oh, I don't think I know that company. And then when I name, oh, do you go to Bank of America? Oh, yeah, okay. We manage their data. And if they do know the company of Teradata, they'll say, oh my gosh, you are so trusted. We work with you. Thank gosh we have you at our company. We trust you so much with that data, because that is trusting someone with your data.
Mm-hmm.
So important.
Yeah. In order to do that, and this kind of leads us to our conversation, you have to
Yeah.
also shape a culture,
Yeah.
right, that supports that. And I know a big focus for you is making sure that you create a culture that attracts and diverse talent, and it is also inclusive. Can you just kind of walk us through, one, the thought process behind that, and two, sort of the journey that you've been on?
Our company is transforming to be from an on-prem to a SaaS company, which is really hard to do. Many companies are doing it, but it's hard, and it's hard to bring your employees along that journey. And I joined Teradata 4 years ago to actually help transform the culture, to bring them along that journey. So what I will start with is that even a cultural transformation has to start with data. Even that, because I can share with my employees that we're going to transform our culture, but if you are an employee who's been there for 40 years, all you're thinking is, why do you want to change our culture? You don't even know our culture. You just started here. So what I can do is go back to employee survey data or exit interview data and say, here's the sentiment. Here's what I'm seeing around the sentiment. And then I can also break that data down to say, and here how that feels if you are an underrepresented minority. And now we can see where there's gaps in the sentiment. And now we can build programs that will help address the gaps and also transform our company. I think the first step is understanding how the employees themselves feel. How do we feel? How do we feel the company is doing? And one of the ways to do that is to do stop, start, and continue exercises where we actually say, what are we doing really well today? What do we need to stop doing? What do we need to continue? And then that continue bucket's basically where everything falls into. So it started with creating our core principles. What do we need to focus on? We focused on being market and customer driven, being agile in our execution, and being accountable to each other. And that encompasses everything that I build. So now I build how I hire people, back to how do I hire the people? And how do I make certain that there's good governance around the processes to eliminate bias in that process? And I don't do that only for recruiting talent. I do that for every program and process that we run. I need to make certain that I am tracking the data so that if there is something that is discriminatory, I can eliminate it, because it happens.
Where are you on this journey? How long did you start, and kind of
So I would say we've been on the journey for 4 years, and where are we? We are making significant progress. Our survey data has, some of the questions have gone up 18 points, like a sense of belonging at the company. So significant improvements, but we're not done, especially when it comes to diversity, equity, and inclusion, because that is such a complex issue, and we have to constantly watch it and build the programs, and you can't do them all at once. But I'll tell you one thing that we did that I think was really extraordinary and accelerating our success is we built a diversity, equity, and inclusion board that is cross-functional people that are all levels of the organization. So it's not just the leaders, it's all levels, all locations and regions. And we shared our programs, our projects, our data with them, and they're helping us identify what we should work on and the roadmap for the timing of that. That in the beginning was really just totally transparent. It was really clunky. It was hard in the beginning. In the beginning, it was hard, and I had to myself get comfortable with sharing that kind of data with my own people and trusting them with that to do the right things with the data. And I will tell you, and I will tell anybody who's listening, you can trust your teams. People want to help. If they have a passion around it, they want to help you. And they have certainly accelerated. They are seen as trusted people inside the organization. And it's not human resources or people organization. It is my friend Bob. Bob's on the board, and Bob understands I don't think the hiring process is free from bias. So I'm going to go talk to Bob. And then Bob's going to say, oh, but it is free because we make certain that the pipeline has diverse candidates and we follow this governance and we have a process around how we hire and we talk about that. I would say that accelerated our success. The work is never going to end. And I'm proud of where we are, but we have a lot more work to do, but I love it.
What would you say is the sort of the program that you've done or change that you've made that's had the biggest impact in terms of hiring diverse talent?
I would say the biggest impact is that every one of our managers, people leaders have understood the how and why we're going to hire our people from now on. That the importance of having a diverse pipeline of candidates so that if you actually have more diversity in who you're interviewing, you're more likely to hire someone who is diverse. I think the governance on how we are interviewing itself, making certain that we ask the same people the same questions, because it's human behavior, and I'm sure you can do it.
So you're giving those managers what the sort of here are the questions to make sure you've got consistency. How's that work?
Yeah. So if I'm doing a hiring somebody, and I might say, hey, Chris, will you be part of my interview team? Mm-hmm. And then I will say to you, here's the questions I want you to ask.
Okay.
So you ask those questions, and then you rate everybody on those questions on a scale of 1 to 5. How are you doing it? Then you meet as a group. So if you're part of my team, all of us get together, and then we talk about the candidates based on how we rated them in the questions that we asked. So there's consistency. But what we do know is that when people find themselves being familiar with someone, oh, you'll like me, my questions are easier for you. Oh, Chris, you started in sales, selling to trade shows and HR. I used to do that. So I know you know the answer to this question. And you start filling in the blanks because there's this familiarity. This eliminates that process. And that has really, truly made a huge difference. Our executive team is more women than men.
Wow. Especially in your industry. I don't think people listening maybe realize that, right? In your industry, that's especially even more of a challenge from what I understand. Yeah. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's a challenge, but it's not impossible.
No, it's not impossible, but I know in your industry, it's a bigger challenge.
Yeah.
How have you? So it sounds like also you've kind of looked at the employee life cycle end to end and looked at sort of all of those moments that matter, but also those moments where bias can creep in, etc. How have you solved that? Is it through technology? Is it through a partner that you've brought on board? What's been your approach for that?
Well, we use our own technology, which is amazing, and the envy. That's one thing when I joined and I was able to see the dashboards that our own technology can build.
Oh, wow.
I know, it's crazy. And I show it to my friends and they're like, oh my gosh. So on my phone at any point in time, I can pull up a dashboard and I can tell you what the turnover is in India in a certain function. Just pick it up. It's really amazing. But I would say that say you want to talk about compensation and do I have bias in my bonus payments? Mm-hmm. I'm curious, right? So my team comes to me and they say, here are the bonus payments and here is how it looks over gender to gender. And then if I see that there's a discrepancy and they say to me, oh, well, we're not concerned about that discrepancy because more men were rated the highest level than the women. Well, now I need to say, well, maybe that's where the bias is. Maybe it's back in the performance rating when they're actually assessing the talent that they're more inclined to give the exceeds expectation, which happens to be our highest, to the male than the female. So I think the more you review every program that you run, then the more likely you are to say, oh, but let's verify this. So now when I do year-end performance reviews, I then look at all the ratings and I look for bias there so that I don't wait until it's time for merit increases or bonuses to be paid to understand, is there some bias in how we're operating? So I think the answer to your question is I'm always learning and seeing something else, full life cycle, exit interviews. We do exit interviews. Is there bias there? Can I look at my exit interviews and identify if those people leaving during their quarterly surveys were disengaged? Like what question? Are their managers bad? Do they not feel a sense of belonging? And then just peeling back that onion. But everything. Who opens their emails? Who's opening their emails? Are my female employees never opening emails because they don't have time? How do I?
Yeah. How are you, just out of curiosity, how are you collecting the exit interview data? That's something that I was speaking about with someone recently.
Yeah, so we use Glint, and and we send it to them to their own personal email. Hopefully they're more likely to. We do an exit interview in person, if not on everyone, but on many people if necessary. But then we utilize Glint, so it's all in one tool. And then Glint has amazing dashboards, so they do have dashboards to pull all that data for you, and you can actually look at the demographics. And we did for our last so we did a Glint survey just a few months ago where we asked our employees for their diversity information, mental health, everything you can think of, religion, anything that they want to talk about that's diverse. Mm-hmm. And we did that because we know in Workday people don't want to tell us, because there is a lot of fear that I might trust you, Kathy, to share with you my sexual orientation, but I might not want that information to get out to my boss or to my coworker.
Really?
Based on what country.
How do you know that? How do you know that that's the case? Just out of curiosity, because you're someone who collects data. So no.
But that's conversations.
Conversations.
And we actually, we asked our employees. I think we did ask a question: would you be willing to share? And we got the sentiment. So we did. We started with a survey question: would you be willing to share your diversity data? And with an open-ended, why wouldn't you? Mm-hmm. And it's fair. It's and we don't know what their personal circumstances are. So then we ran it through Glint, and they were very forthcoming. I think just under 80% of our employee population participated in it. Mm-hmm. I think that there was a lot of understanding of there's so many levels to diversity that I didn't even think about. There are so many things that can make me diverse.
Like what?
Like mental health. Mm-hmm. Do you suffer anxiety? Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh, I didn't even think about that. Religion. We don't. That was things that people said. Yeah. That I do recognize myself in this term. Yeah. But we took that data and we were able to utilize that data, and we have no idea who it came from. So we didn't do any cuts that even helped me narrow it down. But then we were to assess those groups against our engagement data and really identify the gaps. Like, where do I have gaps in belonging, for example, which is a really important one, like feeling a sense of belonging. And now that's what we're doing with the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Board I told you about. Mm-hmm. Is they're doing design thinking to understand all this data and so much that we want to address. What do we address now? And then what's the roadmap to address the rest in the future? Yeah. And then we're going to share with all of our employees. Thank you for sharing with us what you personally are experiencing. Here's what we're going to focus on and help us do it.
There's two things I want to highlight there. One is the fact that I love that you just said that you share it with employees, because and say, frankly, this is what we're going to focus on. Because a lot of times in companies, I hear them doing the surveys and they just never give any feedback, and then they wonder why people don't engage the next time as well, right? And just being very honest that, hey, this is where we're going to focus on and this is where we're not going to focus on as well. And that just means, okay, you hear me and you're actually doing something about it. So I feel like some companies, the ones I see do really, really well, we're seeing that communication after as well.
Yeah.
We hear you, and this is what we're doing. The other thing I wanted to ask you is, how are you presenting that data to those leaders? Is it sharing a Glint dashboard with them? Is it putting it, because sometimes you can overwhelm people with data. Like, what have you found as the most effective way to deliver that data to them?
So the regular Glint surveys go dashboards to the managers. They have that access to it at all time. This particular data has not, it's been shared with the executive team only, and then broadly by maybe regions. It really depends on what specific countries. And then we'll do an all employee, not mandatory session, but a session where we'll talk through, here's what it looked like, and here's the gaps that we see in our organization, and just sharing with them, and like a PowerPoint slide, not in a dashboard that they need to discern what they're looking at and what it means, but a conversation. And actually, we're going to incorporate the board into also talking about it. There was the brilliant board that did the standard deviations for me. I'm in human resources. I'm not creating standard deviations. You know?
But
when I saw it,
by the way, the fact that we're even talking about standard deviations has come a long way. That wouldn't even have been something anyone would have understood when we started. So I think it's important, because I think it's like you said from the very beginning of this conversation, it's around telling the stories. Remember, I asked you about how do people know about the business? You said it's through storytelling. And it's the same thing internally. It's for telling stories, whether it's an employee story, an example of that. That's what people, as human beings, stories are passed down through generations. They're the things that we really connect with, right, as well. Yeah. And I love the fact that you're getting the board together, whether it's on an all hands, on a Teams call where people can ask questions and address it directly. That's also where you're building the trust, where people think, oh wow, they're not just sending the survey. They actually now have an opportunity to actually ask questions and get answers and be part of it, and people feel so much more engaged and part of something, as opposed to just getting an email in your inbox where you click a few buttons and write a few things and you never hear from them ever again.
I
love that. So the manager side, they're getting a Glint dashboard where they can see their own team or everything.
Not the diversity. No one got the diversity one. That was, we told our employees this is going to be private, really private. So our managers don't have access to that. It's me. The board. Very few people have access to that. Mm-hmm. But what the managers will be invited to, as well as employees, is what we've learned from that. Now, how did we take that information, and what are we doing with that? We're building programs to help.
Nice.
So that.
What about I know another focus for you is around the holistic well-being of employees. Obviously, something that has been really pushed to the forefront during the pandemic, and I think continues. We kind of continue to understand the knock-on effects. What's been the focus for you and the team around that space?
So forever, I've been, there's all different types of HR leaders, and I know you know this, Chris. But forever, for me, I am the caring HR leader. That's what I want to do, and I think that when you care about your employees and you take care of their basic needs, then they can thrive and the company can be more successful. One thing that we have committed to is that we're fully flexible and we're not backing down from that. And that is also another challenge for technology companies and CEOs. But as a ELT and a CEO, we support that our employees want the choice of where they should be working from. And we trust them, based on what the outputs and what are the outcomes of the work that they're doing, so we can be successful. And that is actually the number one comment, if I was to walk into any office, from my employees is, please don't take away the flexible work environment. And it's not only from women. Everybody's like, oh, is it the working moms? It isn't. It's from the dads that go home and make bracelets with their
they want to spend time with their kids too. That's something even I realized during the pandemic, that I was like, oh wow, I'm getting all this amazing quality time with Robin when I wouldn't normally see her. I'll just see her for a few hours, in the morning, and then I'll see her for a few hours before she goes to bed. And it wasn't real quality time. So I even said to Shane, my co-founder, I said, hey, I want to work at least 2 days from home a week just so I can have some time. And I don't want to give that up, because I've realized how great it was.
It is great. And you don't get that time back with your child. They grow so fast. As you know, she's 5 now and it goes so quickly.
Hmm.
And everyone feels that way. And not only for your children, it could be for your dog, it could be for your elderly parent, it could be for your neighbor, it could be for your own personal, I'm an introvert and I just basically want to work at my desk 1 day a week, whatever that is. So that is one of the huge things. Then most recently, we changed our parental leave around the globe, that everybody gets 14 weeks of parental leave. We changed our bereavement leave to be much more generous and also to include loss of a pregnancy as well as loss of a pet. And we have a tool like everybody, but it's a wellness tool that is an app that you can also share with 5 friends and family because they allow challenges. And every morning I wake up and it says, Kathy, do you want to do your 5-minute meditation this morning? And I'm not going to lie, lots of times I say, not today.
At least you're getting a reminder. Can I ask who you're using? Because again, like one of the challenges for our audience is they're inundated with different apps and
Yeah, okay. I will say I got a
yeah, cool.
wellness coach.
Wellness coach. Is that the name of the company as well? Or have you renamed
I
it? Because I know
so.
it's always interesting because you can look at like rebrand them sometimes.
Oh, we didn't rebrand it. I think that's the name of them.
Coach. Yeah. Okay, cool. Thank you for letting us know.
It's really great. I can get yoga classes off there. I can stream them to my TV.
Really?
Everything.
Nice.
Yeah, it's no joke.
Yeah, I want to go back to your point you mentioned about the hybrid because it all sounds good in practice, but it's not easy, right?
Yeah.
And I can only imagine there's a company like yours, which is highly regulated and highly, you're dealing with sensitive data. Literally, you're working with banks and governments and you name it. How did that? Yeah, how did you navigate that? That couldn't have been easy.
I think we all navigated it when when COVID hit. If you had asked me before 2020 if my company could be working from home, I would have said no. I would have back to, I think I know everything because I've been working in human resources for so long. And then we all appreciated, because we had to do it in 2020, the complexity around it is really that the equity for those who are in the office and those who are not in the office. And what's that experience? And how do we make certain that there isn't bias because I'm a manager and 2 people I see every day and 6 people I do not. That's the part that you have to work on and remind people about and track with data but it wasn't.
Did you see any of that, by the way? Did you see that? Like, have you seen in the data that people are more so being promoted that are in the office or things like that? Have you seen any of that? Just out of curiosity? No?
No, we're not seeing it.
Okay, great.
In the beginning, I think it goes back to, you talked about employees want to be trusted and feel trusted and empowered. And isn't it empowering to believe that your boss knows you're doing your job? I would never put a tool in that tracked their time.
Oh, man, I don't want to get into that. I know quite a few companies that are doing that. It drives me crazy.
Yeah. So we're adults. Nobody comes to work or has a job and wants to do the wrong thing or do nothing. We might have one day that we all want to, be on Amazon for a day. I mean,
we all have off days.
Not working out.
We all have our off days. Yeah.
We have wellness days too. We have a wellness day every quarter.
Nice.
And half-day summers. But I think taking care of our employees is meeting them where they are and what are they needing. And they're telling us what we need from you is flexibility and trust. And we're giving them that.
How was that? How did that go down with your customers? Because I'm sure your customers are used to seeing a lot of your employees in face-to-face, meeting with them. Now all of a sudden they're doing it remote. How was that?
I think for customers, if a customer wants to see you face to face, we will go in face to face. We will do what we need to do. And even for employees, if I need my employees to come into the office, I'm going to say, "Hey, can you come into the office?" If there's a business need for you to show up, and I don't have any employees who say, "I don't want to go to that. I don't want to do that." If there is a rationale.
Back to being adults and trusting people, right? Yeah.
Yeah. What do we need?
Yeah. Amazing. And you mentioned before, so the technology, when you talk about the people analytics side, is that also managed within that same technology that you and the team developed as well?
Yeah. It's vice presidents and above right now that have that ability to look at it, that's at their fingertips as well.
But
The dashboard.
you've built that again though yourselves.
Yeah, we did.
Wow, that's a real
Yeah.
advantage.
I know. I know. You
Yeah.
should be a customer of ours. Anybody who has a technology in house,
Uh,
they can have this too.
but have you built that like specifically for your HR team? That's not a product you offer, right? Your a people analytics solution.
We don't have if you have a software, you can build that in your company.
Yeah. So
But we don't have an app.
okay. So you've basically you've got all the different components you needed to be able to build that together within the platform to draw all of the data that you need.
100%. Yes, you have the data there. If you have our technology, you could create this dashboard yourselves.
Interesting.
Our people can help you create these dashboards.
Cool. This is so interesting. Never thought when we first spoke, I never really came to mind that would be something that you could do as well. But how does it make you feel as a HR leader that you have that technology?
Oh my gosh. I have the worst memory in the world, number one. So I love it because every HR leader goes to a board meeting and gets asked a question about data that they didn't prepare for. Even if they have a notebook full of all the things that they're going to be asked, there's always a data question that they don't have about their teams. And I just have to pick up my phone and I'm like, oh, well, let me just find that number. Also, when managers make stuff up, right? Managers make stuff up and they say, my turnover is 55%. You have no idea. And I go, oh, well, that's really high. I'm surprised I don't remember that. Let me just take a peek. Are you sure? It looks like it's 5%.
That's hilarious. That's so.
Oh yeah.
You have so I can see the smile. If anyone's not only listening right there, there's a big smile. You just didn't have that before, did you? Right. So you kind of had to go on people's words, and now you're truly data driven. And the fact that you can be in a meeting and just go, okay, 1 second. And
that's space.
And pull that up.
Yeah.
How do you think that's impacted the way HR is viewed by the executive team in your organization?
Well, the executive team is great in my organization. I know they value human resources with or without the data. I just want to answer that because I think that every email I get from somebody trying to get people to come to, a trade show or something, and it will say, get a seat at the table. And human resources adds value to the business and drives success of our strategy. And we do that if we have dashboards or if we don't have dashboards. It's a little bit of a tangent, but I just needed to say that.
No. I'm with you. All right. I'm so surprised that when I see those emails to this day. I'm like, I've been seeing those emails for 20 years. I'm like, are we seriously still talking about this?
I don't even know how to reply, but it's okay because I think that some people still. I just love to help all those people who think that I'd love to help everybody. I'd love to help everybody if they really struggle with that.
What message would you give to a person that maybe is in that position where they don't have a team like yours and a so-called seat at the table? What would you say to them if you in front of them right now?
I would say, what value do you believe that you bring to your organization today? No matter what role you're in. You could be the personnel secretary like I was, and you can think, how am I adding value to this company? How was I adding value to the company? And then take joy and pleasure from what you do. If you can get one person to appreciate and see your value by doing what needs to be done, by identifying things that they're not thinking about, threats and opportunities. I always think about threats and opportunities. What's happening? How can I help you, Chris? I heard yesterday about this. I'm going to tell Chris about that because he needs to understand that for his organization. And then build it one person at a time. And maybe there's 12 people at a table and you only have 3 people who are your champions. But next year you'll have 4 or 5. Just keep doing what you're doing and believe what you're doing is making a difference. Lastly, if your organization truly does not align with your values, then you need to find another place to work. If you're working in an organization that aligns with your values, you will be able to influence that company and drive success with a smile on your face. It just might take you a little bit of time.
I love that message. I'm so happy I asked you that question.
Thanks for asking.
And I know for someone like you wouldn't be there if that wasn't the case. I can already tell.
Yeah.
Right.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah. How long have you been with the company now?
It's 4 years.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
Amazing. It sounds like you're enjoying every bit of it, and like I asked you a question earlier about how far you're in the journey. The truth is, the journey never ends, isn't it?
It never ends.
There's no such thing as a culture change for 2 months. It doesn't work that way. Unfortunately, this is an ongoing, evolving. Right? Would you agree with that?
It's ongoing, yeah. But I really believe that. I hope that I can make a difference. I hope that I can have. I am so blessed to have the ability to run a people organization and to be able to create a culture and create programs and good governance around what we offer so that we can be an environment where everyone can thrive and that we are actually free from discrimination. Like, wouldn't we like to do that for the entire world? I can't do the entire world, but I can do it for my company of Teradata. I have that ability, and I hire people that work for me who also feel that way, and I love my job. So I am just blessed and lucky to be here.
Yeah, it sounds like you're truly living your purpose.
I hope so.
Yeah. Listen, before I let you go, very last question for someone who's kind of on this journey of culture change and building an inclusive workplace where everyone can thrive. To your point, having been and gone and still on this journey, what advice would you give to someone who's perhaps at the beginning of that?
So one is you're going to need data. So find a survey question, because your employees are going to want to see improvement. If it's a 1-point improvement and a baseline is really good. So don't worry about the results in the beginning, because you can improve. Number 2, you need to create something that you are going to hold your hat on. So your values, don't need to recreate your values, but 3s, no 10 values, like a 3 is a really good number. And people retain it. Then articulate what you're doing, the why you're going to do it. Clear communication, never stop communicating. It has to be lived. You talked about the storytelling. We tell at every quarterly meeting, we have 3 or 4, we call them change makers, come and share their story about how they were role modeling our core principles and how it was transforming our company. Not me talking about it, it's our employees all around the world. And this last one is going to be maybe controversial, but you need buy-in from so culture change does not happen top down or bottoms up. It happens all the way, top down, bottoms up, and across. You have to have that, and you need buy-in, especially from your leaders. And if you have blockers, if you have people who will pocket veto everything you're trying to do, you have to remove them. You have to. And that will signal to your entire organization that we mean it. We mean we're going to hold ourselves accountable. And when someone doesn't do it, there's a consequence to that, because we meant it. And that is a signal to people believing they mean it this time. Because the whole change curve, how it works, but you're going to get more people in there if they actually see some of that change.
Yeah, you're not just talking the talk, you're walking the walk and demonstrating as well. Well, listen, thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it. And Kathy, where can people reach out to you if they want to say hi and connect?
Please reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'd be happy to hear from anyone.
Amazing. Listen, I wish you all the best for next week. And thanks so much. I appreciate you.
So nice to meet you. Thank you, Chris.